Final test English for Civic. Analyze 7 articles. Introduce myself. My name is Yanuar Irzhal Rizki Ferniawan. My NIM is 22,312,224 and my address is at Garaboyle Village, Magdatan, East Java. The 7 articles is the 1 is Pancasilai's ideology and characteristics civic education in Indonesia. 2 is implementation of parental involvement in learning civic education. 3 is the policies on civic education in developing national character in Indonesia. 4 is model of civic education learning based on the local wisdom for revitalizing values of Pancasilai. 5 is civic education and the rise of populist nationalism. 6 is increasing civic engagement through civic education, a critical consciousness theory perspective. The last article is civic education teachers' response to the establishment of Pancasilai Ideology Agency. Theme: the first article is Pancasilai's ideology and characteristics civic education in Indonesia. Research problem: the purpose of this study is to prove that civic education in Indonesia is inseparable from the values of Pancasilai. The literature method is used to get conclusions in proving Pancasilai is an ideology and characteristic of civic education in Indonesia. Research result: the results prove that civic education must be in accordance with Pancasilai values in all aspects of citizenship learning. Therefore, Pancasilai is a characteristic of the state of Indonesia as a philosophical system animating all the concepts of citizenship teachings and must be applied in the life of the nation and state. The conclusion: civic education is a subject in charge of how to form a good citizen. Good citizens are citizens who are aware of their rights and obligations. With an awareness of their rights and obligations, a citizen is expected to be critical, participatory, and responsible. Suggestion for each article: the article review above is perfect and it doesn't need to be improved anymore, and the readers also understand it easily. And thanks to this article, readers can get even wider insights. The lack of the article is the downside of this article is that the number is a bit lacking. Maybe from the point of view of the discussion it is understandable and clear to the reader. Theme of second article is implementation of parental involvement in learning civic education. Research problem: parental involvement in learning civic education is the key to success in learning civic education. Therefore, civic education teachers have a great interest in involving parents in achieving the goals of learning civic education in their class. Research result: the study attempts to provide an alternative means of implementing parental involvement in civic education learning. This study aims to classify the roles that can be played by schools, civic education teachers, and also parents. From the review of articles on parental involvement theory and models, it can be classified the roles of schools, teachers, and parents applicatively. Conclusion: parental involvement in learning civic education is very important, considering that civic education is a part of moral education which is responsible for preparing students to become good citizens. Parental involvement can be implemented through an agreement between parents and teachers or schools, so that teachers and parents have guidance in their involvement in preparing the younger generation who have good citizen character in all aspects, both as individuals and as part of society. Suggestion for each article: the article review above is perfect and it doesn't need to be improved anymore, and the readers also understand it easily, and thanks to this article readers can get even wider insights. The lack of the article: the downside of this article is that the number is a bit lacking. Maybe from the point of view of the discussion it is understandable and clear to the reader. Theme third article is the policies on civic education in developing national character in Indonesia. Research problem: each country has different policies on the implementation of civic education. As an independent country, Indonesia administers civic education separately through a special subject under the name citizenship education, while other countries, such as Malaysia, integrate this form of education into other subjects. Research result: the research was conducted using library research. Meanwhile, data were analyzed descriptively, consisting of quotes. In addition, civic education as value-based education stresses on the realization of a good citizen, who has holistic competencies and knowledge, skills, and traits based on the national character. The conclusion: civic education is value-based education originating from the crystallization of the value system of the national culture PPkn. Civic education as a subject in schools and a course in higher education institutions can orient students to the acquisition of character. Ultimately, national character as a country that is united, religious, and humanist, with the function of civic education as a facilitator of national character development and cultivation. It is expected that Indonesian citizens in the future can reflect citizens who are able to practice the national cultural values, namely PPkn. Suggestion for each article: the study of the article above is indeed not perfect and needs to be improved again so that readers can understand it more easily, as well as to add insight and knowledge to readers. The lack of the article: the weakness of this article is that there are not many application and further studies of the result of the study above. 4. Theme: model of civic education learning based on the local wisdom for revitalizing values of PPkn. Research problem: the objectives of this study are to describe the existing civic education learning, develop the model of civic education learning, and measure the effectiveness of the model of civic education learning based on the local wisdom. This research and development study was carried out in 3 stages, that is, preliminary study, development, and model effectiveness tests. The data in this study were collected through interview and observation. Research result: the results of the research are: first, there are strengths, weaknesses, chances, and obstacles in civic education learning. Second, the development of the model of civic education learning based on the local wisdom is presented in the form of the syntax of learning model through the practice of cooperative learning, the problem-based learning, and value clarification. Conclusion: the conclusions of the research are briefly described as follows. First, there are strengths, weaknesses, chances, and perils in civic education learning. Some obstacles that faced by the civic education teachers are the suitability of civic education materials with less balanced time allocation, low student motivation in following the civic education learning in the classroom, the student's perception that civic lesson is not very important, the reality of society is not in accordance with the subject matter of civics, and the implementation of student-centered learning methods and strategies. Suggestion for each article: the study of the article above is indeed not perfect and needs to be improved again so that readers can understand it more easily, as well as to add insight and knowledge to readers. The lack of the article: the weakness of this article is that there are not many application and further studies of the result of the study above. 5. Theme: civic education and the rise of populist nationalism. Research problem: the result for school children has been a mostly watered-down notion of civics that emphasizes good character and patriotism over critical thinking and engaging with multiple perspectives. Research result: this article examines the ideological tensions that underlie civic education policies in practice in a time of rising populist support for anti-democratic forms of governance. Conclusion: we aim for people to think of themselves as active citizens, willing, able and equipped to have an influence in public life, and with the critical capacities to weigh evidence before speaking and acting, to build on and extend radically to young people the best in existing traditions of community involvement and public service, and to make them individually confident in finding new forms of involvement and action among themselves. Suggestion for each article. The study of the article above is indeed not perfect and needs to be improved again so that readers can understand it more easily, as well as to add insight and knowledge to readers. The lack of the article. The weakness of this article is that there are not many applications and further studies of the result of the study above. 6. Theme: increasing civic engagement through civic education, a critical consciousness theory perspective. Research problem: there is a growing need for increased civic engagement in developing countries. We argue that civic education has not met this need in Nigeria because it is uncritical, but it can be reformed through critical consciousness theory emphasizing knowledge and critical thinking. Research results revealed that community volunteerism is mainly influenced by age, gender, and location, while environmental civility is mainly influenced by location and education, and there is a generally low level of civic engagement. The implications of these findings for a critical civic education aimed at increasing critical consciousness and civic action are discussed. Conclusion: with the urgent need for increased civic engagement in Nigeria, a critical civic education in Nigeria is crucial. Understanding the relationship between civic engagement and socio-demographic factors is also vital for civic education reforms. Suggestion for each article. The article review above is perfect and it doesn't need to be improved anymore, and the readers also understand it easily, and thanks to this article readers can get even wider insights. The lack of the article. The downside of this article is that the number is a bit lacking, maybe from the point of view of the discussion. It is understandable and clear to the reader. 7. Theme: civic education teachers' response to the establishment of Pankasala Ideology Agency. Research problem. The results of data analysis conclude that teachers who teach Pankasala and citizenship education subjects support the formation of BIP initiated by the government that continues to improve its performance to maintain the Pankasala ideology, or otherwise, it can have a major impact on social disintegration. Research result. This research aims to analyze the formation of BIP with research subjects of 7 teachers who teach PPkn at 7 Madrasa Aliyah Islamic Senior High Schools of Bagan Sinamba Sub-District. In order to answer the problem formulation, the researchers use a qualitative descriptive method with research instruments using interviews, observation, and questionnaires, and then analyze it using the Likert scale to reach conclusions. Conclusion: observations in schools. It can be concluded that the formation of the existing agency of Pankasala ideology education now becomes the interest of minority groups, and the general society did not expect anything. Suggestion for each article. The study of the article above is indeed not perfect and needs to be improved again so that readers can understand it more easily, as well as to add insight and knowledge to readers. The lack of the article. The weakness of this article is that there are not many applications and further studies of the result of the study above. Thanks you.